You know how much I fucking hate being late? I hate being late. I don't even like using that word. So I use this software called Riverside FM. And good morning. Hi. Shouldn't start off negative, right? Too late. 8:01 a.m. We're supposed to go live at 8 a.m. I use this software called Riverside FM, and basically I do the show on Riverside FM, and then it somehow humps YouTube. You kind of have to punch in some numbers, URLs, and passwords, and then they kind of connect, and then it goes live. But it's just it always seems like there's one or two hiccups that just occur every single day. And they're stupid. They're human errors. It's not. I don't think it's Riverside's fault or YouTube's fault. I know it's not. But anyway, here we go. The thing is the podcast doesn't make. It's not a job. Hi, Eddie.
Hey, Sevan, how are you?
And so, I don't know how you make people care about shit. I guess if they had an audience staring at you while you did your performance, you'd care a lot because you'd feel that insane pressure. Sorry. Hi, Eddie.
Hey, what's up?
Fuck. I'm just being a baby this morning.
Why? What's wrong?
Do you ever wake up and you're just feel like you're being a baby?
Lauren, do I ever wake up and act like I'm a baby?
I thought I heard someone say I have to poop. Did I hear that?
My wife just said every effing day.
So the thing is this, I do this podcast, right? And I have these guests on that I wish I was. So that's the cool part about it. Oh, I am that part of you. By the way, kids making noise and during the middle of the podcast is perfectly acceptable on this podcast.
Oh, it is?
Farping, burping, kids, nudity, messing up, having to go early, bad connection. That's all legit.
Do you do it on your other podcast with your CrossFit stars?
Oh, it's even worse. That one's even worse.
Neither of them have children.
No, well, Josh does. Josh has 2 kids.
Oh, I didn't know Josh has kids.
Yeah, 2 kids. He spends a lot, and he's a single dad too, so he spends a lot of time like juggling that shit.
Oh, geez, single father. You always hear people talk about single mothers. And
Yeah.
like how it is. What about the single fathers of this world? Because we're not built for it.
Right.
Like it's nature to be, and anyone listening that goes, "Oh, gender neutrality,"
Eat a dick.
We are not built better at it. Women are much better at it. And
How old are your kids?
I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. One of them.
Oh, okay.
One of them I like.
We're in the same. We're kind of in the same boat. I have a 6-year-old and 2 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
What's kind of cool though, I guess the 2-year-old you still have to deal with a lot. When they're 4, like when I started the podcast, I walked by like the playroom, and the 4-year-olds are already doing their own shit, and they'll be like playing with magnets for the next 2 hours. I'm stoked.
I can't wait for that. I miss this time, and I'm like, no, I won't. I will not miss out of diapers. And is 6, and I love the age she's at. It's so much fun. She's awesome. The 2-year-old, it's just it can be an absolute nightmare.
Do you just want to just dig in?
The car seat.
What about car seat?
Car seats are the worst. I'm researching statistics about car seats. I need to see a significant like amount of life-changing evidence that saved by car seats. If it's just like, like a 0.0006 difference, I'm gonna go on a rampage and try to outlaw car seats.
What if we found out stuff? What if people like actually cared and we found out stuff that like because of car seats, the number of days of lives that humans lose is 1,000 for whatever reason, because they off gas and shorten your life, because they fall off a shelf and kill someone. But what if you added up all the damage that car seats do, the pollution they cause to a river, and then you drink that water and it shortens your life by 100 days? Let's say we figured out all the damage car seats did, and we find out that they actually take away more days of lives than days of lives they save, right? Let's say car seats save like 12 kids a year, but we find out it actually reduces the life expectancy of the totality of the planet by 300,000 days or something crazy. You know what I mean? Do we stop using car seats? Because I
No,
feel like a lot of the stupid shit we do on what?
they wouldn't stop.
They wouldn't. I know.
No,
You're right.
no, because that's how we are. We never, we make laws, we never repeal laws. And I've had this argument with it's so fun. Someone that you probably won't know, but world it'd be really funny if I was talking about this. There was a girl that start of the comedy, kind of the comedy. She did
I hate her. I hate her already. I hate her already.
the pod or her special was called Nanette, and you should
Okay.
watch it. It's on Netflix. It was like the probably like of 2018. What year it came out? 2018. It was the biggest special. I mean, I actually like her a lot. I'm friends with her. And I went on tour with her one year, and we were in a van for 2 weeks together, and we fought constantly. And one
God,
of
I wish you would have said fucked constantly. This show could be so much better.
the like, I'm glad you didn't. But there was this time now, because my argument was we were in New Zealand actually, but she's Australian, and I was saying that the Australian government was too strict about drunk driving, and for example, in like Queensland, they had done as many breathalyzed tests as there were people in Brisbane or in
Wow.
Queensland.
Like
And
in a 1 year period or something, or in a weekend?
yeah, in a year period. And I said, like let's say there's 4 million people that live in that state in tests, and I said that's like I don't know, like totalitarianism or whatever it is, to an auto. They're autocrats or whatever the word is, authoritarianism. I don't know what it is, but I said it's just too much. I said I think drunk driving's wrong, but that's too much. And so I spouted off these that you'd find interesting, going back to our conversation about the car seats, that drunk driving deaths had gone down since Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who make all the laws against drunk driving. Drunk driving deaths had gone down in the United States when they raised the age from 18 to 21.
Okay, makes sense.
Drunk driving deaths went down. Canada did not raise from 18 to 21. It stayed at 18, and their deaths proportionally per capita went down the exact same amount.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it didn't have anything to do with drunk driving. It had to do with cars getting better. Right.
Yes.
So the statistic that they were using, this was Mothers Against Drunk Driving statistic. And I read somewhere, I could be wrong, but the woman that created Mothers Against Drunk Driving wanted to stop drunk driving. And she said a lot of these mothers that against drunk driving, which you can understand why, if I lost a child, but they want to end drinking altogether. Like they kind of went on a rampage and just started to pass laws and pass laws and pass laws. And they're saying that it's hard as a congressman or a legislator to say no. She comes into you, wants to pass a law. We're going to put car seats in. We're going to ban this. Do checkpoints. We're going to do this. We're going to do, but you don't. Whenever somebody goes too far, no one goes, we can, because you can't go up to this mother and say, sorry, rid of car seats. That being said, you look at with Hannah. She's like, I've lost friends from drunk driving, and I'm like, we've all lost friends. That's like somebody going, I had cancer, and it's like everybody gets cancer, and
right.
You can't. And her whole about being a victim, and
I really do hate her.
You You'll watch the special, and you will, and it was so funny because she did.
It's a deplorable mindset. It's a disease. It's worse than fucking AIDS. It's worse. It's a disease. A victim mindset is a disease. You're horrible.
I like her, but I
I'm
wanted to do
sorry.
my Australia. I wanted to call it Mannet because
Yeah.
the whole special is about men need to change. Men are terrible people, and we, you know, uh, assault women and abuse women and this and that. And I'm sitting there going, I don't do that. Why am I getting a lecture? Because you've been in a situation where it's happened to you. You're yelling at all men right now. You're doing what is wrong. You're stereotyping. You're generalizing. You are putting us all in one category. It'd be like, you know, us saying that
You
about,
can do that if a penis is the criteria.
yeah,
Other than that, you shouldn't do it.
yeah. So I think you would.
Biology.
That's your homework tonight. I really want you to go on Netflix and watch Nanette. And
Hey, I think I've heard you talk about her before, and I went and looked her up, and I think I had like a visceral reaction.
you'll
Like I
scream.
thought, oh, I'm gonna break my TV.
You'll scream.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say it was the biggest flop of 2019. It bums me out that you said it was good.
She became the biggest star in Hollywood. I have never seen anybody go from total. She had a pretty decent career in Australia already because the critics loved her. And I think she's funny. Like when we used to do stand up together, she used to make me laugh. But then her it was a TED talk on like sexual assault. And look, I'm not here to be a proponent of sexual assault. I just speech it was not a comedy special, and I think she won. You name it, she won it, and she became the biggest star in Hollywood.
Isn't it amazing? Well, it's amazing to me. I don't want to put words in your mouth that people who know how hard you have to work then would argue other people's limitations. Like people who've made something of their lives and gotten somewhere, they know like there's nobody who knows better than LeBron James about hard work. And yet he argues the victim mindset as a legitimate mindset. It's mind-boggling to me. It creeps into my head even that there's a malicious intent, like it's a way to keep people off the mountaintop. Now I don't really believe that. I just think it's just being just 100% retarded, not knowing how to think. But you believed in yourself, but you don't believe in anybody else,
Well,
and
see, here's where
it's devastating to me.
here's agree with you a little bit on that.
Please, you can disagree a lot too.
Um, I have this. I heard it on that. There's that new show on HBO called Hacks, and I just watched the trailer for it. And the woman's like a former or still is a big star in young comedy writer writing for her, and the writer's like kind of this woke writer that said, I've worked so hard to get where I am, and blah blah blah. And she's like, we all work, like, former like star. I mean, it's like we all worked hard. And I have this theory about Hollywood. You come out here, go to karaoke night here, and you will see every single person is so fucking talented.
I know that's scary. God, that's scary.
It's so scary. I've never forget the time I went to karaoke and I'm like, oh my God, everyone here has an amazing voice, is amazing looking, theater and acting and this and that. And they're all incredibly talented. And beyond that, they all work really hard too. Like everyone I know works their ass off. And the one that makes it isn't the one that works harder than the rest. They had all of the parts of the equation. They had the talent, they had the hard work, and they also had the luck. And it's like a lottery. There's only so many Kevin Harts in this world, and Dave, and they worked really hard to get where they are, super fucking hard. But they also had some luck to get where they were, because I know guys that work just as hard as them, that have zero, the notoriety that they have.
Do you want to go? Let's go into this a little bit more. I want to talk about what it means to work hard. So I worked at a home for disabled adults. I was homeless. I walked in there barefoot. I applied for the job. I got the job. And because I didn't have a place to live, I was willing to work 100 hours a week, right? Because then I could sleep there. It was awesome. So I started working my ass off there, making $7 an hour. And, within like 5 months, because knew how to eat out of dumpsters, I was rich. Like in 5 months, I had like $10,000 cash saved in the bank. I mean, I was fucking rolling. And I just kept working harder and harder. And after 5 years of working there, I worked every single Christmas and every single Christmas Eve. I never went home to see my parents. I worked Easter. I worked all the holidays. I took any shift anybody gave me. I never took a vacation. And after 5 years, I was the lead of that house, and I had 20 people working for me, and I was making $21 an hour. Then I was rich as fuck. You don't like, if you're homeless and you're making $21 an hour, you are loaded. And there's other people who thought that they were working hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't. I mean, not relative to me. They went home on Christmas. They went home on Easter. They took their birthday off. And so I almost feel like there's levels to this game. And the same thing happened with me at CrossFit. I was not the best filmmaker there. I was not the best at anything there, but I never, ever, ever, ever took a day off. And I mean, never. 365 days, 24 hours a day. Like,
I agree with you, and I do see that, like that when there are people that are complaining to me that I can't, and I say, you aren't working hard enough. They're like, I can't get. My dad always said that to me. Bitch. I remember when I was doing stand up and I had things going on for a while in my career, and then it kind of all went away. My dad said to me one day, he's like, do you work 40 hours a week? And I said, well, I don't know. I go, I do shows every night. And he goes, how long's your show? And I go, sometimes I'll do 7 shows in a night. And he goes, how long are your shows? And I go, 20 minutes. And he's like, it's not 40 hours a week. And I was like, well, I write during the day. He's like, do you put in he goes, how can you expect to make anything, like even a living, if you don't put in at least 40 hours? Be successful, you have to put in 80 hours a week. And he was just like,
yeah,
like, you need to remember that. And I did run around and do 7 to 11 shows every single, like 11 a night in New York City. I would go do. And
wait a sec, 11 in a 24-hour period?
Yeah, 11 shows is my record. I think the record overall was, I think Steve Byrne did 14 in one night, or Greg Giraldo. It's probably what
I think it's Geraldo Rivera. I think you said his name wrong.
Geraldo did many shows in Afghanistan.
Wait, so how do you do 11 shows? How long is a show? 30 minutes?
Anywhere 15 to 20 minutes, a spot.
Okay, so let's say it's 15 minutes. Holy shit. And then you have to wait while other people go, and then you go up again. You're just like on a bicycle? You just like...
So what happens? And you'll call the clubs and give them your avails. At the time, there were probably about 10 clubs in New York City.
Oh, it's not at the same venue?
No. And so...
Oh, my God.
Right. And I wanted a motorcycle so that faster, but I mean, I was just doing taxis, and taxi probably the best or a car service for the night. When I was preparing for a TV show or something, I'd rent a car service and have them sit outside and wait. But on a regular night, it was always taxis, and that throws a little bit of chaos into it, because you run out of the club, got to find a taxi or jump on a subway, depending on, like, if you. So what you do is, to do 11, I started at 6 o'clock. There was like an early show. Did a show
at like 6 a.m. at a strip club, or 6 p.m.?
Yeah, but I did do shows at strip clubs too.
Okay.
6 p.m. you do the show, and then most clubs have like multiple shows, like let's say 3 shows, and some clubs have more than one room. So you go in one room, you do a show, you walk out and you do a show in the other room. And then, like, the Comedy Cellar, for example, has 3 rooms. So I can do now 3 shows, 3 rooms at the Comedy Cellar and get 9 shows in and stay in basically like one club. But
wow.
But I'd start on the Upper West Side, do a spot, run over to the Upper East Side, do a spot, run to, like, I'd start at Stand Up New York, go over to the comic strip, down to Dangerfields, from Dangerfields go down to the New York Comedy Club, then head down to the Boston Comedy Club in the Village, then go to the Comedy Cellar, then go up to Caroline's, maybe back to the Comedy Cellar, maybe back to Stand Up New York. There, it's all pinballing around all night long.
Did you ever get tired of hearing yourself talk? 11 shows. I would like want to, like, after a podcast, I kind of just want to put super glue my mouth shut.
After about 4 or 5 shows, and I used to drink a lot, I'd start going, did I tell that joke in this set?
Oh yeah.
Or was that the last one? And every once in a while, someone would be like, the audience would just go silent, and you're like, I did that joke tonight, and they'd be like, yeah, you did.
I had 5 girlfriends at the same time once, and that shit happened all the time. It's a mess.
5?
Yeah, 5.
Pussy. I had like 7.
5 girlfriends in Isla Vista, California, all within a 1 square mile radius.
Oh, you're not joking.
No, sir.
That's a famous comedian now who had 2. Both lived with him.
One on
weekends and one on weekdays. And he would take all of the one girl stuff and put them in a container and put them in a closet and lock them in the closet. Bring the other girl's stuff out. And I'm talking like clothes, pictures, everything.
Did they know about each other?
Oh.
Oh yeah, mine had. You gotta like. You can't. Yeah, you can't. They gotta kind of know about each other. They kind of gotta know. They gotta know something.
He did weekday, weekend.
Yeah. If you want to do it full steam ahead, like baller style, like you the man, you gotta have. And I was homeless at the time. It was great. It was amazing.
That's the greatest story ever. Girlfriend.
It really needs to be a movie. Really needs to be a movie. I actually, so during that time, I is when I met my wife, and I courted her for 5 years, and I actually wrote a script. It's called 5 Years to Fornication, and it's the 5 years of courtship before I was able to,
That's. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was very similar in the girl, but I was just a serial dater in that. Like women were like, you keep a stable.
Yes.
There was always one on the way out, and so you gotta get one, bringing one in, and the girl's like, oh, I do this with guys because she's like, I'm always filling up one of the relationships.
Yeah.
So always on the way out, and I'm always like trying to find a new one because by the time that's on, that way I have a new one in. And I was never serious with any of these girls. I always wanted, when I was serious about my
But
career,
did you want to be serious? Like I wanted to be serious with all of them.
not at all.
Oh.
I was married to my career. All I cared about was stand-up comedy, and relationships came second. So I never looked for a girl that I could get into serious. Like I dated like strippers and crazy girls that I would never want to like fall for and have a relationship with, because I just didn't want that getting in the way of my life at that time.
Yeah, that's hard work. That's awesome. That's hard work.
Yeah, but yours is harder because you're trying to like get a relationship with 5 of these girls. That's impossible.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. It was like a rock collection. Like you just want to just keep collecting them and adding them and adding them and adding them.
That's how I felt.
You did 14 shows in one night, or no, 11 shows in one night. I don't want to tell you how many girls I did in one night. That'll be a different show. You have to come on another time for us to tell that story.
I've told this story.
But I never had a one night stand in my entire 49 years of existence. You know that?
Oh, you loser.
Yeah. Because the thing is I figured it was so hard. I'm 5'5". I have a giant nose. I'm Armenian. I have like some hair on my back and shit like that. And it's just so much work getting to that point with a girl that it seemed like an utter fucking waste to bone someone once and let it go. It was just like, let's say it took, I don't know. My whole life I've never gone to a bar and like someone said, oh, you're cute, you want to go home with me. Like that is not my life at all. It's like I have to put in a lot of work to get that close to a girl. A lot.
I used to think that girls, a lot of girls in my life, and then once I settled down, wife, no girls ever contacted me again, and I realized it was all me. Like I was pushing this. There weren't girls like chasing.
Oh,
I was
wow. That's awesome. What an awesome realization.
it ended. It ended completely. Like I'm not kidding you. Like I've since I've been married 7, 8 years. And I'm on stage every night. I've been hit on maybe twice.
And you're not even sure. You're like, that guy, I could put that in the I got hit on column.
Yeah. So I
Dude,
realized
that's awesome.
it was like no girl. And I used to think, I'm like, oh my God, I have these special powers. Like women love me. And it was like bothering them.
Right.
And I was good at it. I'm not going to lie. I used to do a podcast about it where we talked about it. And, but it was easy. You know, you are famous for about 15 minutes and attracted to funny guys. So if I was making a room full of people laugh, you know, when you say one night stands, whew, it was, I got some notches in the headboard. It was, I told a story, and I've told all this on my old podcast and stuff. So I kind of like don't like talking about it now that I have kids, but because
I understand, but I like sex stories.
but
Can you tell us a G-rated one?
I met a girl one time in Newcastle, England, that I had sex with that I never spoke to.
Wow.
So out partying after the show, she tagged along. I just remember like drinking, partying with a whole bunch of people, loud nightclubs, getting in a taxi. She got in with me, kind of like so drunk, went home. She followed me home, like basically came in the car with me, went up to my room, had sex with her in the morning, woke up, looked at her and said, "Hi, I'm Eddie. What's your name?"
Oh, that's amazing. Did she laugh?
Yeah. Yeah. She thought it was hysterical. And I was like, what happened? Like, what was. And then, funny enough, about a year later or something, I was in England, and a really famous, funny comedian from the UK named Frankie Boyle that you would love was he's super famous in the UK. He was hosting the show, and he said, "Hey, there's you in the front row," and I was like, "Really?" So I looked out and I went, "Oh my God, that's that girl." I knew it sent. And I said, "Oh shit, I can't remember her name. Do me a favor, can you find out her name from the stage?" And the MC talks to the audience. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And Frank, and he goes out before he brings me on. And they do the introduction. You might have seen this next comedian on this, or he's all the way from the United States. He goes, "Wants to know your name."
Oh, it could have been worse. He could have said something even crazier. I'm gonna give him a F in the friend column. Yep. Wow.
I just walked out there and just looked at her like, I was like, oh, so bad.
There's this book I was reading. It's called Bounce. I just finished it. I'm reading this other book now. It's called Influence. Another interesting book. But what's funny about it is the book's all about influence. But the guy reading the audiobook, his voice is so repulsive. The irony there is crazy. It's so crazy. I've actually will tolerate anyone reading a book to me, but this guy's voice is so fucked up. Anyway, I just finished reading this book, and when I say reading, anytime I say reading, I'm lying. I listen to audiobooks, right, in the car when I drive the kids around, because that's what I really do for a living. And I was reading this book, Bounce, and the author is named Matt Said or something. I forget what it is. A crazy good book. God, everyone should read this book. So good. It's basically talking about talent versus hard work. And this guy was the like #1 ping pong player in the UK. And he tells a story about a guy, and it has multiple levels of insight into the story. It's a great story, but he tells a story about a guy who for 5 years played ping pong in a shed. He was really poor, and he was in a poor neighborhood. So he had to walk several blocks to this ping pong shed, and this kid played ping pong in a shed where there was no room to back away from the table. So the shed was so small that when the kid played ping pong in there, his hips were touching the table, right? And so what that did is after 5 years, it made this kid the greatest ping pong player who ever lived coming out of the UK. I think his nickname was like Speedy Gonzalez. And what they realized was because he couldn't back away from the table, his reflexes were insane, right? Like the average tennis, I forget what he says, ping pong player needed 400 milliseconds to react to someone's swing because they react to your swing and your body movement and not the ball. And this guy only needed 200 milliseconds. They somehow measured it. And so that's another thing. Like I'm going back to our original conversation about working hard. That's another thing that people don't realize. People think like luck comes in the form of like your parents were rich or the right person saw you on the right day. This guy's luck is that he had fucking hardship. This fucking guy's luck is that he had hardship. And there's a million stories like that. And so if you're a fucking victim and you feel sorry for yourself, you miss the fact that working out in that poor shitty shed is actually what made this guy the best ping pong player in the world. And there's 10 gazillion stories like that. No one the greatest people in the world, you're going to find out that Uncle Buck fingered him at 3 and that their dad beat him until they were 12. And it's like, hey, I'm sorry, but there's just a ton of that.
I'm a big
I'm
surfer.
not
I'm a big
sorry.
surfer fan, and Kelly Slater's the best surfer in the world, or was the best surfer in the world. Arguably the best of all time. I mean, no argument. He is the best surfer of all time.
He's beautiful too. Man, he's handsome.
The guy's he's the man crush of as everything. Anyway, he grew up in Cocoa Beach, Florida, where the waves suck. I mean, they comparatively to the rest of the world. And same with the Brazilians who now rules. Their waves aren't that good. They have to surf these little and because they have to surf these little crummy waves, they become so good. It's like you ever read The Talent Code?
No, should I read that?
Oh my God, it's such a great book, but it sounds like very similar to what you're reading. It talks about all these hotbeds of like wherever people are good and great at what they do. Like he said, there's no such thing as being a natural. Like you might,
same premise.
Like like Matt Frazier is physically built for. He works harder than any CrossFitter to get that good. The same with like it talks about the Brazilians are so good at because they play this soccer called
Oh yeah, he talks about that too. Yeah,
they touch the ball more than anyone, and there's all different kinds of like. I grew up doing comedy in New York City. I contend that New York stand-up comics are the best in the world because we could do 11 shows a night, and the Talent Code really relates to this. That they talk about wrapping myelin in the book, all about your nerve bundling.
Yes,
it's nerve bundling, and that you make mistakes, you correct the mistakes. You make the mistake, you correct the mistake. So like the best guy out there makes the most mistakes.
Yep.
You see a kid at soccer practice that is the best kid out there, and you're like, wow, what a natural. No, that kid is in their backyard all night long after soccer practice playing soccer. This little kid down the street that I was playing catch with, it's high school baseball team. And I said, I did well and made it to college, and I look back and I'm like, did I work hard? I'm like, to the track. And I was the only kid on my team. And on weekends, I went to the gym and lifted weights after a kid in the weight room from the track team. It takes that extra work. It is that hard work. Now, the state championships or the national, every kid there hard. They all
right.
Talented. They're all. And that day is like, I watched the Olympic girls this year in the Olympics, and I expected the U.S. guy to win it, and the Jamaican guy won it, and it was small amount of time that it's what was the thing that day opposed to this other.
When he was jumping over the third hurdle, he hit a fly, and that slowed him down just enough to not win it.
Don't know, like it could be think about women. Think about
wait, before you switch to women, it's 110 meters? It's not 100 meters?
110.
Why?
I forget. I looked into this once and 100 meters, and then they added 10 meters at the start to up to the hurdles. The women run 100 meters, which is weird.
Okay, that is weird. Okay, so sorry, the women. I thought I was catching you saying something wrong.
Imagine you get to the CrossFit Games, and that day you get.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I wonder about that all the time. Yep.
I talked about with Ryan Flair, performance training, and he was saying, that's a subject matter that's like becoming increasingly like to deal with. I mean, he's talked about like some of the greatest athletes in the world, and you'll see them have a bad match, game, whatever they do, and the public will be like, "What the fuck?" Blah blah blah, and they don't know. She's going through something that you, Mr. Armchair Coach, critic, have no idea because you've never done it or been through it.
And because you're too much of a pussy to even talk about it or think about it. I brought that up. There was an article in the New York Times that made me look like shit.
That's why I brought it up with you.
Oh, you want to get me fucking all riled up about fucking that dumb woke ass fuck Katrin David's daughter? Fucking dipshit. I don't dislike her, but she's a dumb fuck. I mean, it's just the way it is. You know what I mean? Like that's a like. Just it's objective. It's objective. It's observational.
But back to the talent code.
Yes. Good job. You win. Thank you. I owe you $10 for letting me just throw that into the show. By the way, I'm gonna send you a thank you card.
New York gets so good. I think live is this guy named Dave Attell, and Dave does. Still to this day, he's been doing comedy for 35 years or whatever it is, and he does 5-6 shows every single night, and it's all he likes to do. He doesn't like to do anything else. He loves to do stand-up. He used to write for Saturday Night Live, and he would leave the tape. They couldn't find him, and we had the same manager. Calls from Lauren Michaels going like, "Where is Dave? We're taping right." So my manager would track him down. This before cell phones, and he'd be at the Comedy Cellar. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm doing a set." He's like, "You're supposed to be at SNL." He's like, "They don't need me right now." He's like, "They're shooting the." And
wow,
over and over and over again, and it doesn't work on the first. Tweak it and fix it. On the second show, you tweak it a little more. Third show, you're like, "I think I got it." So you're doing all this nerve bundling, and you're doing it. Whereas now that I live in LA, I might get one show a night, and I'll do one show, and then I've got hours for the next show to fix it. Tweak so much in New York. London shows, and London was a little bit of
wow. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, and that you would just get these guys, and they're in, they're match fit. These guys are just ready to go, and I'm intimidated when I go back to New York, and I throw myself into, and I might have a lot more success than these guys that I'm like, fuck, I got to follow this guy. He is just roaring right now. Like this guy has it, and he's doing those 5, 6, 7 shows a night every night, and you're like, whew. And not to say I was special or good or anything like that, but I remember when like signed Chris Rock, and they'd be off doing sitcoms, and they'd pop in to do stand up. Been doing it in years almost, or they'd do it like once.
And could you see the rust on them? Could you see the rust on them?
Fuck yeah! And here's the thing: no one wants to follow them because they're so famous. The crowd would, the crowd would fuck the tape. Come on, they're like, "Oh my God, it's Jerry Seinfeld! Holy shit!" And so comedians were always intimidated by that. And I was like, "Put me on after him. I'll go on right after Seinfeld." And they're like, "You really? You want to?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I felt like I'm in shape right now. I've been working every day, and there's no expectations for me. People are like, "Oh, watch this guy bomb after Seinfeld," and so I love that spot. I've heard so many comics go, "I hate following famous people," and I'd be like, "Oh, I think it's the best if you're in shape and you're ready. It's the best spot on the show."
How old are you, Eddie?
I'm 50.
Oh shit, you look good. Do you dye your hair?
No, I just got accused of dyeing my beard, but I've got the gray ones in there. Kids make it.
That special you have Malabama. How old is that?
I did that.
God, you look fucking good. Holy shit, you have nice skin and everything.
Yeah, it's getting there. I was a lifeguard for all through college. Sat on the beach 8 hours a day. No, and uh, damage here. But I just went to the skin checked because I had a mold that I was sure it was cancer. And the guy looked
But
at
it's not. I'm sorry to hear that
I,
that you got let down.
the guy looked at it and he goes like this. He goes,
Hypochondriac.
if you Google melanoma, he goes, that looks. He goes, however, under the microscope, that does not look like. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the Virgin Mary. That's the Virgin Mary under a microscope.
Yeah. So,
did you watch Abbott and Costello as a kid?
Yeah, I loved them. I just watched them the other day, probably 2 days ago. Now that who's on first?
Yep.
Because
she had never seen that.
She had seen it. She was like, "Oh,
okay.
I don't remember." But my wife's younger than me. My wife's 12. Yeah, my wife's she's like 13 years younger than me, and so and she'd be like, I was in 8th grade when that happened, like OJ Simpson. She's like, I was
a woman in her 30s. That's a lot of servicing.
Yeah, tell me about it.
That is a lot of servicing.
So Abbott and Costello, a comedian friend of mine did a thing about the WHO and the WHO,
World Health Organization, that WHO.
Yeah, and he keeps doing. Who says that we should get vaccinated again? And the guy with him's like, but who says?
Who?
He's like, who says that we need to get? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it, but you need to tell me who is telling you to do that. And he's like, who? And I'm watching it, and it's funny, and I'm like, this is who's on first. And my wife's like, huh? I'm like, watch Abbott and Costello, which I watched, and by the way, holds up right now. It's fucking brilliant, and it's better writing than 95% of the shit you'd see out there.
That makes me so happy. So as a kid, I woke up every Saturday morning at 5 a.m. And I'd run out to the TV set, and the TV then only had like 3 channels, and I would just start watching cartoons. And when all the cartoons were over on Saturday mornings, like I don't know, like at 10, then the dumb shows would start, like Shirley Temple and that shit. But if I waited long enough, and I always would, there would be an Abbott and Costello show that would come on, and it would be like Abbott and Costello meet the Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello meet the werewolf, Abbott and Costello. It was fucking amazing, and I watched Abbott and Costello for years every Saturday, the black and white shows, and I had the cassette tape with the Who's on First, and I was determined to be like Lou Costello. That was the short, fat one, right?
Yes.
I wanted to be Lou Costello so bad as a kid. And then, and I grew up in the Bay Area, and then I got really, really at a young age into Rodney Dangerfield. And I had this, and my dad at a very young age, I was probably like in the 6th grade, bought me this set of 10 books. It was the world's most dirtiest jokes or something. And it was a 10-book like collection of these really skinny books. And my dad and I drove a lot, like to LA or to Tahoe, or we would just my dad would just take me on trips all the time, and I would just read dirty jokes to him that they would probably just, in hindsight, probably would just freak out most parents, right? And it was awesome. And one time I won tickets, like I don't know, like I was 10, 11, 12, and I won tickets on KFRC 610 on the FM dial, AM dial, to go see Rodney Dangerfield at Shoreline. And my mom fucking took me to go see Rodney Dangerfield at Shoreline live. Dude, it was crazy.
He's one comedian I've met almost everybody in the business.
Uh-huh.
Big enough name. From Sacha Baron Cohen to Will Ferrell, you name it. I've met Rodney. I met Carlin. I've like buddy. I've
wow.
worked with Williams a bunch of times. I worked with Howie Mandel the other night. It's just like
is he as weird as Howard makes him out to be?
I was expecting, because of COVID, for him to be like
yeah.
And he came in, and I think I saw him shake some hands or bump some people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wearing a mask the whole time. except when he went on stage, which I'm kind of like, if you're gonna, if you're gonna like, I think it's weird that people wear them into a restaurant and then take them off, then put them on. Like I think
Cunts. They're cunts. They're fear mongering cunts. I don't mean that again as a bad thing. But the mask is the fear flag. Whether you want it to be or not, whether it is to you or not, you're telling everyone around you that there's something scary there and you're scared of it. And so if you take it on and off, on and off, on and off, then you're just a douchebag. Sorry.
so.
And I like a lot of douchebags, by the way. I have a lot of friends who are douchebags.
So Rodney is the one that I never met Andy Kaufman. I would have loved to have met Andy Kaufman and Rodney. And Andy, I've met Tony Clifton. I had Tony Clifton on my podcast. I don't know if you know who that is. Tony Clifton was Andy's alter ego.
Oh,
His manager. He played his own manager who was like this violent, drunk, womanizing asshole. And
wow.
then when he died, his real manager became Tony Clifton. And then everybody thought Andy was still alive because Tony would show up places. They're like, wait, Andy, what? How is this? How is this happening? And then they were like, wait, is this? So there's this guy, Bob Zamuda. And Bob Zamuda is Tony Clifton, although he'll deny it. House in Tahoe. And Tony Clifton, but Bob Zamuda arranged that I meet Tony Clifton. It's really crazy. But Andy, it was like they would both play him. And
what podcast episode is that? I want to go back and listen to that.
That would have been, I think that's the very I did. It was called the Bengal Show.
How many episodes have you done? How long have you been doing it?
Talking shit, I did 500. Wingmen, I did back in like or something. I did like 10 episodes of this show with a guy named Brian Callen. And the funny thing is it was all about like picking up women. And then on the New York Times or the LA about Brian like accusing him of raping women. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done a podcast about even though Brian's
by the way, the LA Times also called Larry Elder a white man in blackface. LA Times is the most racist pile of shit fucking. If you support the LA Times or the New York Times, you're a fucking idiot. You might as well go back in time and vote for Hitler. You are a fucking racist, sexist scumbag if you support either of those newspapers. They're horrible. They're worse than Reddit. Sorry.
Brian is a friend of mine, and I don't want to get into like the accusations, or that's a whole other thing. But Brian is a friend of mine, and then I did talking shit for did 500 episodes, 499. I quit at 499 because I thought anybody can do 500.
How long did it take you to do those?
I don't know how many years, maybe like. But I'm about to hit 500 on the WodCast too. So WodCast is up near 500 episodes, and
how long do you think it'll take? Did it take you to do that? The reason why I ask is because this guy Matt Souza, who's like kind of stepped on my dick and told me like, hey, you got to do this podcast. I told him I said I'm going to do 500, and I figured I could do 500 in 2 years.
You could do 500 in 2 years easily. I mean, Rogan probably does that. Because
I have to. You have to basically be obsessed. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, I don't like. I just was bitching about Gary Vee yesterday to someone. Gary Vee's like, you got to put content out there. Everything you see, you got to put it on the internet. And baseball players only hit the ball 20% of the time. None of your content hits. 20% of it's gonna. No. There's so many times that I look at my digital. I'm like, I just put a lot of shit out there.
I like that.
I feel like it's narcissistic of me to think people want to hear me.
Well, hey, if I'm not feeling uncomfortable every show, then I didn't do a good job. That means like I'm not giving my best to the audience. I should feel uncomfortable. I should feel like I'm vulnerable. I should feel like I should be like second guessing myself. And if I'm not, then it is more like littering. But if I'm really putting it out there, and I actually, it's funny, I haven't gotten to any of my notes about you, but I have this one like very serious question to ask you.
7 inches.
About all of that. Ready? your whole life you're supposed to like enlightenment is sorry, too deep. Let me reel it in. Uh how do you know if you're a good comic? Your whole life you're taught like, hey, love yourself and just like yourself. Or how do you know if you have a good podcast? The truth is if no one if like I've always wanted to be a comedian and I'm not a comedian, and like so that's why I want to start having a lot of comedians on the show so I can live through them vicariously and like think I'm cooler than I really am. But you're I'm okay with my success being determined by other people. Like if people don't like my podcast, that means my podcast sucks to me, and I'm kind of okay with that. And I would think that the same is kind of like that for being a comedian. Like, could you be a great comedian and everyone thinks you suck?
Yeah, I think
You
so. I think
explain that to me, because I know it's taboo to like put your happiness in other people's hands or your success in other people's hands, but I'm kind of like fuck it. I'm gonna just do it.
well the
Like,
best
am I gonna get my heart stepped on?
from the beginning, comics recommendations for me always were do what you think is funny, not what the audience think is funny. You
Right.
know,
There's the paradox, right? Yeah.
uh, Bill Hicks always said play to the back of the room, meaning like play to the comics, because the comics know ultimately have a better sense of humor than the average person because comics are experts in comedy. They study comedy. So, a hack comedian can go out and kill with the audience, but a cover band is going to kill with an audience too, but you're not going to buy their albums.
Uh
A cover band is going to come out and play all your favorites, Brown Eyed Girl, and everybody's going to scream and dance. But, if it was some cool band that was like incredibly musically talented and no one knew the words to their song, yeah, these guys might be good, but I'm not. So,
why is that? That's like the Milli Vanilli phenomenon. I never understood that when people found out that it really wasn't them singing, the song tanked. I'm like, what like what do you give a fuck?
that's a whole other thing, I think, with people being fooled. Because
Yeah.
you look at Avicii, who had like really popular music, like EDM kind of music, and he didn't sing any of his own songs. He was the songs, but his name was on them. And it's like, singer. Who's the singer of these songs that you're getting all the
Right.
credit? So, uh, as a comedian, I think in the beginning everybody tells you to strive for this like integrity and blah blah blah. Get caught up in, wait a minute, I want to killing. How do I kill? How do I do? There's constantly that turn apart the art versus commercialism, where
Right.
I gotta make the money, but at the same time I want to do this really unique, different stuff. And all my favorite comics were all the ones that didn't give a fuck. Took me a long time to get to not give a fuck. When I wish I took the road from the beginning, gotten to where I wanted to be a lot quicker.
Uh
But it would have been hard. It would have been
but
harder.
there's a paradox there, right? Like the whole like I'm kind of in that place too. Like I was trying to see what my hat would look like on backwards. I've never worn it backwards on the podcast. I'm vetoing it right now. Um I I, I I'm in a really good place right now because I don't give a fuck too. But I do give a fuck. But I'm in the I don't give a fuck space. I'm in the I don't give a fuck space because um like I can't go any lower. I was fired from my job a year and a half ago. Like they're like I have my kids in my life and like fuck what like not you can do nothing to me now. And that way I don't give a fuck. But I do give a fuck in terms of I don't want to litter, like that term you used earlier. And I do like if I'm littering and people aren't enjoying the podcast and people aren't enjoying the guest, and if there's not something people are taking away being better from it. And so I do feel then I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, there are times where I feel like I'm littering and I get mad at myself. I used to not care.
Because you care because you want people to laugh, right? So you have to go up there and not give a shit about your comedy, but you have to care. It's weird. It's weird, man.
Well, I went forever not caring. I went
Okay.
uh, and I would do comedy that I always use people. You say what kind of comedy I would like. I would say I take the things that are the most challenging, the hardest things to laugh at, and I try to make you laugh at them. I want the
Oh,
audience to, I love the laugh where people
bold.
are, oh my God, I should not be laughing at this. However, when I had children, I evolved and I became a different person because of my children. And so my comedy has changed a lot. Love to be offensive. And the woke culture, because people are like, aren't you so scared? What are you going to cancel
Yeah.
from the Chuckle Hut next week?
All
I,
right.
I just,
Is there really a place called
yeah,
that, the Chuckle Hut?
they're the worst names ever. All comedy clubs have the worst names. And it's just, it's so embarrassing when friends are like, where are you? Ha Ha Cafe and go do a show. Uh, it's just like I prefer clubs that don't have that like go
OMG, is that really the name of the cafe? Haha. OMG.
go bananas. There's a club in Cincinnati called Go Banana, and it's just to say I have to work there is awful. So
But if nobody laughed, you would be like every fucking comic, like you want to hear people laugh. And so
sure,
your success really is dependent on you have to accept the fact that you have to accept that.
well,
It's a paradox, right?
that depends because when my comedy was all about pranks and fucking with people, and my friends people and they would laugh. So I was trying to make a subset of people laugh by kind of making fun of other people or at the expense of other people. I'll use Sacha Baron. Not saying I'm anything like him. My comedy's like him. The joke is on everyone else. Sasha's doing what he's doing, and we as the viewer are watching him pull this like stunt off on everyone. We are laughing. We're on his side now. Like we're the viewer. We know we're inside. We know. When I started doing stand-up comedy, I had to let the audience in. And it was weird to me because I'm like, you guys aren't the people that I want to make laugh. You're the people that I want to play the joke on that other people laugh at. And so it was very difficult for me in the beginning. And I didn't know how to do that. But like now, studying comedy and understanding it, people like Andy Kaufman did that. Like his whole thing was the joke was on the audience.
I'm gonna say something stupid here. I apologize in advance. When you say, so was your original comedy when you were when you're referencing like you would play pranks on people? Would it just be just like you'd be like? There's this thing we used to do as a kid. We would go to the library in the 7th grade, and we would the public library, and my friends and I would pull out like a Playboy, and then one of us would have to be like walk up to the librarian, open it up to the centerfold, and be like, while everyone else watching, like, is this appropriate? Do you know what my mom would say? Can you believe this woman's and then the joke was on the librarian. We were complaining about Playboy magazines in the library.
Right.
Is that what you mean by like you used to do shit like that? Like just stand up for your friends and just pick people on the randos and just fuck with them?
That's the exact same thing. And so
Okay.
how do you translate? Because it's all of I want the joke to be let them in on the joke. So what I kind of into at some point in my career was do these jokes that upset people. And I'm going to bring up a subject that they're like, you don't tell this joke. I loved, I'd go to like do a show to college and they're like, hey, do that was just here. And I was like, okay. And I would shitting joke. It was like whatever you told me not it was the taboo subject is exactly what I was going to do. And there were people in the audience that would be upset about it. And I always said, keep getting upset because it makes the person next to you because
Right.
you're being upset. It wasn't like I was trying to hurt people's feelings. Humor was in this like prank kind of place. And look, I've hurt people's feelings and I don't want to do that. But I have done it and I'm sorry I've done it. But it's just it's kind of utilitarianism, like the greatest good for people. Like people are like, well, shouldn't you cater your jokes to everyone? And I'm like, I don't have the ability to do that. Maybe I do now, but I loved Andy Kaufman and my comedy. Again, I'm nothing like him, but at Rodney Dangerfield's club, the manager told me once, and I said, "Did you ever know Andy Kaufman?" And the owner of the club, who was Rodney's manager, said to me, he goes, "Andy Kaufman, Andy Kaufman." He goes, "Huh? Yeah, yeah, I remember that guy." And I'm like, "How do you not?" Like, this is kind of how out of it the owner was.
Yeah.
A movie, Jim Carrey starred. Do you not know? I go, "Did he ever play here?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He goes, "We had him try out here once in the old days." He goes, "The tryouts where the young comics would come in after the show at the end of the night, and the staff would sit in the audience, and the new comics would get it like 3 minutes in front of the staff, and the staff would then vote to become a regular comic here." He goes, "So we had heard one guy and how he was like new up and coming and he goes, so we gave him his audition one night." He goes, "So he shows up, and all the new comics are doing their show. It's Andy's turn. Comes in, he's got 3 minutes. He comes kid on stage, puts a drum kit together. They're like, he's getting ready, and all the comics are kind of giggling, and he's getting ready. And he goes, then he leaves the stage, and we go, "Where'd he go?" They go, "Oh, he went downstairs to put his costume on." Puts on his Elvis costume or whatever it is. He comes up on stage. Now he's gone way over his 3 minutes, and they're like, "What the fuck?" Like it's late night and everything. We got to go. And what's this guy doing? Comes on stage. He takes a bow. They're like, "What?" Goes back downstairs, takes his Elvis costume off, puts his street clothes on, comes back upstairs, starts breaking down the drum kit, taking piece by piece out to the van outside. Then he gets in the van and drives away. The owner said to me, "I never fucking hired that guy ever." And I go, "That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, that is brilliant." And he's like, "What is?" I go, "What?" I go, "The fucking joke he played on you guys." And he goes,
Oh man.
"What joke? What joke?" And I go, You don't get it. You were part of like one of the greatest jokes ever that I've ever heard at a comedy club." I go, "How long did that last?" He goes, "Oh man, that guy took up like a fucking half hour of our time." And I go, "That's genius." And he's like, "He's an asshole." And so,
It can be both. It could be both.
it's subjective. And I look at it as though I would have been crying watching that happen. Whereas 90% of the audience would have been like, "Who is this fucking asshole and what is he doing?"
When you said when someone asked, "Well, can you tell clean jokes or whatever?" I immediately thought, my brain started going off, and I'm just thinking like, yeah, you got Bill Cosby, who made a career out of telling clean jokes, but then was drugging women at night. And it reminds me of the Republican senator who fucking comes up with all the fucking anti-homosexual bills. Yeah, then he's in the bathroom jerking off. And then it's the same thing with our current president. It's we have a guy who's the most blatantly racist human being ever to lead this fucking country in my lifetime, and yet he's charging the anti-racist front. It's crazy. I was trying to explain it to someone the other day. If my neighbor stood on his front porch and said, "I am not a pedophile. I hate all pedophiles," and his lawn was covered with signs that said, "I hate pedophiles," like, guys, come on, man. Come on. The world is such a funny place like that. How it's that kindergarten psychology. You have one finger pointed at me and you have four pointed back at yourself, and it's like almost always true. It's like, anyway, I got off on that because when you were saying people want you to tell clean jokes, it's like, yeah, look at the comics who tell clean jokes. Look at
My friend who's a porn star has a great phrase. I think they use it in the porn industry. She goes, "People jerk off with their right hand and point their finger with their left hand."
yeah. Wow. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think porn is the greatest example of that in the world. How those people are not vilified, but shunned and looked down upon, the entire industry. Meanwhile, you click on their videos and there are 80 billion views, which means everyone's watching it, everyone's using it, but yet you wouldn't have a conversation with that person, or you pull your children away or whatever. I had um, at my wife's baby shower, one of my friends who's a porn star was there, and my wife invited her. Yeah, she became friends with her through me, and she had her at the baby shower. And my wife's friends with all these like girls that were like debutante type girls. And here's this girl who I'll tell you, it's Bonnie Rotten, and Bonnie is at the.
I'll look her up when the show's over.
No, look her up now, and it'll spur your conversation even more. She's got,
Okay.
she's got spider web tattoos on her boobs. Um, she's one of the nicest people I know, and she's always been a good friend to me. And there's like, it's just there's like no sexual relationship whatsoever. We talk about our kids all the time, and she's just great. She's like a wonderful person. And
Oh, she's very attractive.
yeah, she is. She's very pretty, and she's very into guns now. She's all about shooting and tactical games and stuff like that. She's gotten out of the porn world. But it was so funny because and I said, How was your baby shower? She was like, It was good. I was like, How was everyone with Bonnie? Was it weird? She's like, What do you mean? I was like, Well, was it weird that Bonnie was there? And she goes, No, people loved her. And I was like, She's like, Why would you think people wouldn't love her? She's great. And I'm like, Yeah, okay. But it was me just assuming that everyone would be like, Ooh, porn star, blah blah blah.
But maybe they didn't know she was a porn star. Did they know?
She did, because at one point somebody said, Bonnie, what do you do? And she said, I fuck for money.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's one of the funniest people. I met her in the last came off stage, and she chased me out the door. And she was a pretty girl, and yeah, I was married at the time, but she's like, Who are you? Who are you? You're so funny. I need to. She's like, Are you on Twitter? And I was like, Yeah. And she tweeted me. Like, I told my wife, I'm like, Lauren, look at, I just met her, and I pulled up her porn. I'm like, Look at this. Look at this. Oh my God. I'm like, she goes, My wife's so smart. She goes, So I had her on. She sits down, and I think my first question was, What's the worst thing you've ever done in porn? And she goes, I.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
But I was like, We're going to be good friends.
Wow. Is that the only porn star you've had on your show?
No, I've had tons. She was the one I really enjoyed because they're very interesting, very smart. She said to me, I knew I was going to do it for a little bit, and I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the best there is. And she became the AVN Performer of the Year, which is the highest award. And then she got out.
Oh,
She does
so
every
she was a hard worker.
follow her on,
Was she a hard worker?
follow her on all she posts are videos of her shooting now,
Uh-huh.
like rifle range, games and
Oh,
competition.
that kind of shooting. Okay, I was thinking like behind the camera. Okay, yeah, you said that shooting,
No,
right?
she is so into it. She's absolutely obsessed with it, and you can see that she's got that personality. That
Do you ever feel like it's a waste doing other people's podcasts? Like, hey, you should have been spending this time doing your own podcast.
No, I like doing other people's podcasts because the parameters aren't there. I can go outside of what I have to do. I'm not enjoying doing mine, and I'll switch it because I'll fix it because I'm not enjoying it. Um,
What do you mean? Why aren't you enjoying it?
um,
Did you ever enjoy it? First, let me
yeah,
start
yeah,
there.
yeah. I
Oh,
enjoyed it. When WodCast is the only one I'm doing right now. And WodCast, there are constraints of like falling into what the listener expects, and like doing formula. And I hate
Oh,
formula.
there. See, we circled back. There we are again. Like we do this thing, and it's like we're supposed to just do stuff for ourselves and be ourselves, and yet if no one likes us, we're a failure. I'm starting to be like okay with that, but it's weird.
Yeah, and the commercialism of it. It's like, hey, I make money doing this. I have to do it. And if I switch the brand, then I see people that are on brand all the time. Like I look at Conan O'Brien. Now,
Hmm.
how do you not kill yourself doing the same fucking show every night for 25 years? Like I know it's different and it's a variety show, but it's the same formula every night, this and that. And so I just the great thing about me never I've had a million pilots, none of them ever get picked up. And the best part about that is that my life is so random that it's always interesting. Where if I work a comedy club sometimes, Vegas, and it'll be 7 nights in a row. By night,
Uh huh.
the fuck out of here. I cannot walk on this. So when I'm falling into a bit of complacency with my show right now, but I also like
Oh,
I like talking to interesting people like you.
well, thank you.
No, I mean I who or when, but every once in a while I get a bad guest. CrossFitters are bad guests. And I blame myself. I was just telling my wife, I was like, I blame myself for not doing enough research and not coming up with funny enough questions. So that's
Oh,
I really throw questions that their answer doesn't even matter. So
E-
because they can't roll, a lot of them became workout people because they're insecure and they're not socially that's not their thing. Um,
yeah. I did a show with the guy named Colton Mertens,
oh yeah.
and and then I did more recently a show with the girl who took second, Laura Horvat.
Mm-hmm.
And the one with, and both of them were like really, really hard shows, but for different reasons. But you know what it made me want to do? It makes me want like so now I want to have like Colton Mertens on. Like so I want to when I on the weekends I'm going to start doing these shows. I'm going to rip this idea off from Howard Stern actually. I'm looking for someone to do it right now. I'm going to start doing a show that's like the news, right? You know how Robin like will read. By the way, I can't stand Howard anymore. I stopped listening to him like 2 years ago cuz he's just spreading fear around unnecessary fear around COVID. He's a bitch of
I've
the
heard.
highest
I've heard.
order.
So I'm just to let you know. I grew up with his wife, grade school, high school, college. We're really
Uh-huh.
close friends. Just saw his mom at or her mom at a funeral. I know Howard is very very afraid.
Yeah,
So
he's a bitch.
he is very afraid of COVID.
And even if I was a bitch, I wouldn't spread the fear. That's the other thing too. Like there's things that I do, like I tell people don't eat sugar and don't eat refined carbohydrates, but don't drink alcohol, but it does happen. It does happen. There'll be a time where I'll have a fucking kombucha while I'm watching UFC fights, once a month. I don't post that shit on Instagram, not because I'm being fake, but because that's not the message I want to spread.
Mm.
That's not like I don't show my kid my kid will occasionally like I'll go to a birthday party and he'll eat some ice cream at some kid's house. I don't post that. I don't lie about it, but I just say, hey, yeah, I don't feed my kids added sugar, or refined carbohydrates. And if it does happen, I don't like. I'm not like one of those people who's saying, hey, I'm a vegan and then get caught eating steak. But you have to realize that we're all influencing other people. You have to have a certain without being fake, you have to respect your platform. And if you're scared of COVID, I get it, but don't spread that fear because there's nothing to fucking be afraid of if you're a healthy person. Like nothing. You're more likely to die falling down the fucking stairs.
That ship has sailed though.
What
The
do you mean like
I
what
think
shit?
I was just talking to my wife about it. I said, look, you, well, I don't want to get into it as far as like vaccinations and this and that. And I said, we can do all the protocol that is right or that is mandated or asked. Said, but I don't think it's healthy for us to talk about COVID ever.
Okay.
with our children. And I said, I think like this thing
I
is
agree.
going to take its course wherever it goes. But I've had friends that have had it, many, 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 and I will say to them, how
And
bad.
maybe you have had it. Do you know for sure you haven't had it?
I don't know, and I could have.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
I've said to friends, when you got it, how bad? They all go, and I had this and I had that, and I go, yeah, but how much of that could have just been psychosomatic? And and I know people that have had it really bad or this or that. But my point is that there is so much fear mongering that when you get it, you're like, I go, I'd freak out if I got it
Right.
because they have talked about it so much, and I have a really good brain of storing every little thing I've ever heard, and I am a bit of a hypochondriac, and every little thing that's story, it'll like, oh my god, like as soon as I had that thing on my leg, I remembered this guy I knew that passed away that had a mole between his toes that never saw it, and I'm at the doc, and I'm like, I remember that. So I think all the talk that's gone on of COVID has same with cancer. My sister.
Oh, cancer's the identical. There's this book called Ravenous. You have to read it by Sam Apple. Cancer is in 1930. Cancer was the COVID of today, and Hitler was terrified of cancer. He was the leader in cancer research. It was amazing. They were basically going to take over the Ukraine and to kill all the people and just plant fields of organic food there for the Germans. They were terrified of cancer. And now look, 600,000 people die every year in the United States from cancer, and they never found the cure for it. You know why they didn't find the cure for it? For the same reason they're never going to find the cure for COVID. There is no fucking cure. You have to stop eating poison. You have to stop fucking eating poison, and then you're good. 99% of you will be good if you stop eating poison. You won't get cancer, and you won't die of COVID. Peace and love.
I don't want to change the subject completely, but
please do it because I want to talk about go back to podcasts.
We're like, that's why I like talking.
Well, basically, so getting tired of podcasts. So basically, one of the things I want to do is I want to steal that idea from, and I just talked to James Hobart about this last night. Yeah. And something may have changed with your audio just now. Does my audio sound okay to you?
Your audio sounds fine. Mine's.
Oh, that's better when you lean back, I think.
Okay.
So I want to take this idea on the Howard Stern show. What's her name? I was going to call her Joan Rivers. It's not Joan Rivers. Robin Quivers. Robin Quivers does the news, right? Where she reads like 30 headlines from the news and they go through and it takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And basically one day a week I want to do that. And I asked James Hobart if he'd want to be the news guy. And he said he'll think about it. But if I don't find James Hobart to be the news guy, I need to find someone. And I would love a black, lesbian, Jewish woman to do it, because I think that would cover a lot of bases and give us a lot of cover. But if not, I'll take the white guy, James Hobart. And but I want to do that. I'm excited to like steal that idea and run with it once a week and do the live show on Saturday and Sunday. That's why I do this show live now, Eddie, because it's scary and terrifying. By the way, I'm sorry I was chewing ice. I try not to do that, but it's my show. Sorry, the ghost of Versailles.
You on that note, I tried to do that with WodCast.
Okay.
So
to go live or have a news show?
Have a news show. So when WodCast was going on and it was Scott, Armin Hammer, and myself, Armin.
Oh, you worked with Armin Hammer?
Was my partner.
Okay.
First it was Kenny Kane, Armin, and I. Then it became this guy, Scott, Armin, and I. And Armin knew everything about CrossFit. I mean, everything. So I was like, Armin.
Yeah, he does.
And I was like, I don't pay attention to it. And I'll just throw in jokes here and there. That's all I wanted to be, was like kind of the guy that just makes off-color funny stuff. And
yeah, me too.
We all split and went our separate ways. Anyway, I had
Who was the other guy's name? Scott what?
Scott McGee.
I wonder if I know him.
He's a SWAT team guy.
Sounds very familiar. I'm going to Google him. Go on.
At one point, I had contacted the guy who does Morning Chalk Up, Justin LaFranco.
Okay.
And I said, hey, this is back when Morning Chalk Up had just begun. You come on our show and do a segment each week on the news of CrossFit. because I didn't want to have to follow CrossFit. And
Right.
I'll just let someone else be able to tell who's doing what, there's this, blah, blah. And he was like, tell me your demographics and tell me you're this and tell me you're that. And I was like, this isn't going to work out.
Yeah, that dude's on the spectrum for sure. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for sure. 100%.
So it wasn't our personalities, nothing against him. It's just with.
It's okay if there was something against him. That's fine too.
But my point
I shouldn't open that door. Oh man, he's a fucking just another woke bitch.
Oh, really?
Go on.
Oh
God, they're so fucking woke. Those fucking idiots made a post on their fucking Instagram of fucking Dave Castro and basically insinuating that he was closed-minded and fucking bigoted and just wasn't open to shit. Meanwhile, he's wearing in the picture, he's wearing a shirt, the gay flag CrossFit shirt. This is the SEAL Team 6 guy wearing the gay flag CrossFit shirt, and they're trying to call him out for being a bigot. I mean, it's just such shallow, no integrity bullshit over there at the Morning Chalk Up. They're cunts. I blocked them like fucking years ago. There's like the whole. Anyway, but I like what they're doing, and some of their content's good, and I have no problem giving them credit where credit is due. But like they have no problem. Like I guarantee you that there's a rule you're not allowed to say my name over there or reference my podcast over there. All those fucking idiots are either threatened, terrified, jealous, or hate me, and they should be because I'm free. And I'm not a racist, and I'm not a sexist, and I'm not a homophobe, and so I don't have to pretend like I am or I'm not like those fucking woke jackasses. And they suck dick and pander to the community as their daily like habit. And I don't have to do that, and like they're just douches. Funny. 117 episodes in, and I really have tried all 117 episodes not to say anything negative about these people, but. And it really, and I guess maybe it's not negative. It's just objective.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
observation.
I've always found like when critics review my shows, sometimes it's really harsh, and I'll look at it and go, they're fucking right. You know, it'll hurt, and I'll go, but they're dead on.
Right.
So, like, you didn't like your review, and I'm like, no, I don't like that they were right.
Right.
Yeah, like
right.
I don't like.
I get that.
You know, like it hurts, but they were right. I get mad when they're not right, when they've made up bullshit. You should read my one review that I got a review one time in Australia that they wanted to have me deported.
Oh, that's awesome.
This big fat one-eyed side lesbian feminist woman who literally like talked of having me deported from Australia. And I used her review on the back cover of my DVD. And I just thought it was hysterical.
Yeah, I think that's good.
A 1-star review, and I said I went with her to the show that wrote for another paper game review, and I changed my poster to say critics agree.
I love it. I think it's a shame not to I think it's a shame to not realize that rising tides float all ships. Like that you shouldn't be threatened by people in your space. You shouldn't be jealous of people in your space. You should be inspired, and you should basically on some level be all supporting each other. In sports, it's a zero-sum game. I beat you, I win, you lose, we're at zero. The world of economies does not work like that. If someone is succeeding, we're all succeeding. That's what the woke crowd fucking does not get. They're fucking miserable curmudgeons. In 1986, Mercedes-Benz put an airbag in their 560 SEL. It was the first airbag in a production car. Now, every Tom, Dick, and Harry has an airbag in their car. And yet still the woke crowd and these fucking idiots complain about the discrepancy of wealth. You can't talk about the discrepancy of wealth if you also don't consider the fact that poor people have more access and more opportunity and are richer than any poor people in the history of mankind. What do I mean by that? Everyone has a fucking smartphone. Everyone has an airbag in their car. People are sleeping in their cars. And so like and you want to be mad at Bezos and this other Virgin Atlantic guy for going to the Mars. If we don't let people get that rich, none of us will ever go to Mars. Someone fucking has to do it first. Quit trying to pull people down from the fucking top. And to make the people at the bottom better. The discrepancy isn't the measurement. It's the overall health of everyone relative to where it was 10 years ago is the only metric that matters. You guys are screwing everything up. And which brings me to one of your other podcast buddies who you had a breakup with. And I watched the video on YouTube yesterday and he's a bitch too. That guy can come get some too. I'll fuck him up.
Jim Jeffries?
What? Yeah, he's a cunt. He's the stupidest fuck ever. I regret listening to that 8-minute video. I don't know if you're friends with him now, but he said some dumbass shit about people's rich parents buying them shit. You don't know shit, dude. You need to shut the fuck up.
It's
what?
When that happened, that was.
By the way, this is the most negative I've ever been on my podcast. I really apologize. I hope people would tune out by this point.
I've never really talked about this on a podcast.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to address it
to him. I was going to go to one.
And that's
out there.
He's a fucking idiot.
And
I don't even know him or your beef, but he said some shit that's so not true there. Like, there's really, really fucking poor people who've saved a lot of money working in the field, and I come from those kind of fucking people who fucking were making $7 an hour, saved every penny they had, so that after 30 years of saving money, they could lend that money to their kids so that their kids could buy a house. It's not rich parents lending their fucking buying their kids' house. It's good parents. It's good fucking parents looking out for the generations ahead of them and saving money and trying to help people. I'd live in a car before I sold my house so that I could give it to my kids.
I wish I pay that fucking
yes
every week, and it's impossible. But what happened was, and I that was on Bert Kreischer's podcast. They did that. Bert's a good friend of mine. Bert said, "Hey, whatever happened to you and Eddie?" Jim and I had a falling out when we did this when we did a podcast together, because I used to just got a sitcom. I got Jim got a sitcom and I got the podcast. So who won in that divorce? That was my joke. The truth of the story: he was my roommate for 3 years. He was becoming very successful. I was not jealous of him. I was helping him. I did so much to help him and hope that his career would excel. A narcissistic piece of shit. And I always swear I wouldn't talk about him anymore. But
and he comes across like that, by the way. He totally comes across like that.
And he said I was jealous of him. I believe he was jealous of me because I'm happy, because I have like a happy family life and I'm hobbies and take care of my body, do things to make my life better. Whereas, he's got all issues and it suffers from depression and all this stuff. Anyway, we had a show and we were selling ads for our show. At one point, we went to collect on the ads from this one guy that was selling ads for us, and he wouldn't pay. And the guy was going through this podcast network, and he never paid us. He never paid the network never paid us. And when we decided to divide up the podcast, Jim goes, "Give me half the money that's in the account and take my name off the show." And I said, "Okay, there's only about $500 in the account, and we need that to pay bills. And
right.
Probably more bills than the money that's in the account."
Right.
And I said, "So actually, you probably should give me some money so that I can pay all the bills." And, because we have, money to, or whatever it may be,
even hosting the podcast, like hosting this podcast cost me a couple $100 a month.
He didn't understand any of that because he never did any of the administration.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, there should be it started out, there was $11,000. And I said, you can ask Jay Moore, who was the owner of the network. We didn't get paid for that." And he goes, and everything he ever does in embellishment on Bert's podcast, he said there was like 40,000. So he
Yeah.
has 40, and I even said to him, we never got paid. We have the same. You can ask the accountant. He will explain because I have told you. And he was like, just give me my money. And I was like, there's no money to give you. Ask the accountant. He'll explain this to you. And I said, there's like 500. He goes, well, just. I said, here's the password. You have it anyway. Take it all. I don't care. You can have it. Fuck you. And
How are your stories so different? Isn't that crazy?
because he's a storyteller. That's what he does. And the victim and everyone else. So I always swore I'd never talk myself having to defend myself until a couple guys made about him. And they made some documentaries about him that shed some light on who he really was. And then he had this with he brought a guy on his TV show, and basically the guy's like a nationalist, and he's an Australian guy, an Israeli guy living in Australia, immigrants coming into Australia. On your show, just you cannot put me on the show like Hitler or anything like. Don't do that, and also don't context. So sure enough, the guy secretly recorded his interview, and then Jim did his interview, and at one point stopped. He goes, "Mate, we're gonna edit this. I'll say I watch me say this about Muslims. Watch me say this. Watch me." On his Comedy Central show, but here he is like trashing Muslim, and so the guy then released on YouTube the whole interview, catching Jim. Now, I don't, I ended my friendship with that guy, but like the other day, my mom passed away a few weeks ago. He contacted me and said, sorry to hear about your mom, which I did when his mom died. I'm not an animal, like,
right.
I liked having good people in my life. I put him out of my life because I just didn't feel like there was any benefit in my life. I was on his sitcom. I had a part in his sitcom. Like, don't you owe him for that? No, I don't owe him for that. Like, I owe him nothing for that. In fact, they said they wanted to give me a reoccurring role on it. Like, hey, we're going to make this reoccur. And I was like, I told my wife, offer me to be on the sitcom, regular character. Make sure I say no. Like, we would like that money, but make sure I say no.
Have you ever ended a friendship over money?
No.
Like ended? Yeah, me neither. I've had people like all the crazy shit, like your housemate who's a heroin addict steal your bike and he's nodding off and you're like, dude, where's my bike? And he's like, I sold it. I've had the people like the friend I lent $4,000 to never paid me back. The friend I lent $3,000 to never paid, just all that shit. I never, ever would end a friendship on that. Now I'm like, my friend who was addicted to heroin who lived with me, like the first time my bike got stolen or he stole my bike out of the house, the next time, like I just started locking my bike in my bedroom. Right.
Yeah.
Or like the time you come home and like your friends are in your room smoking your bag of weed and it's all gone. You come home from third period at college. You're like, dude, they're like, sorry, as they take the last hit. I just hide my weed somewhere different. I don't put that. If I'm 4 years into a relationship with you, Eddie, and we've been going surfing every day, and then I find out you took $20 out of my console, I mean, it's on you. I'll confront you. I'll be like, Eddie, dude, don't take money out of my that $20 out of my console. Yeah, and like we'll talk it out, but I will not fucking end a friendship. Like, it's on the other person. They're the one who did the bad thing. Why do I have to react to it?
Well, I think in the situation with Jim is I had ended our friendship over him being, in my opinion, a bad person.
Right. And I agree. There's like unhealthy people you have to get distance from.
So I think he embellished this story and made himself look like the victim to excuse his behavior of why we no longer had a friendship. rather than take responsibility and say, you know, I was a piece of shit to Eddie. That's why we're not friends. He
Right.
had to look at them. And I saw him do that in our relationship all, which was like, this is why I can't be friends with you. You're constantly playing the victim. And it's like, oh, poor Jim, poor Jim, poor Jim, instead of owning up to it and going, why aren't we friends? Because I was a shitty person, you know,
Right.
and I didn't stand by my friend. I wasn't a loyal friend, and I did some shitty stuff to him and to his wife, and to so that's why he made up that story, and it was like a shock to me, which had happened earlier on in our relationship, which was like the start of everything, where we had this like one night he just got drunk and obnoxious and did some stuff to my wife, and the next day he's like, was I? I'm like, yeah, you owe an apology. He's like, okay. So then he apologized to her, and we were all supposed to go on vacation. And he's like, so when are we leaving? I'm like, well, we're not. He's like, what do you mean we're not going? We're like, no, you're not going. I'm like, you know, we're all going and you're not coming anymore because of what you did. And he's like, but I apologized. And I was like, yeah, doesn't mean she has to accept your apology.
Right.
Like, give her some space, and maybe you did was pretty bad, and, you know, give her your space. Cut to, we all go on vacation, and I'm getting texts from him. Fuck you, and your girlfriend. You're fucking piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Yes. Yes.
he's saying, you ruined,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
ruined my weekend. Now,
There it is again. Of course I can't be friends with you. If you ask a girl out and she says no and your response is you dumb cunt, the girl made the right decision.
yeah.
If that's how you react when someone puts you under a little bit of stress, then they made the right decision. If a girl says no to you or a friend gets upset with you and you want to rekindle the relationship, don't throw a temper tantrum because they didn't believe your insincere apology. Give it a week. Buy them some flowers. Clean their dishes. Like try to make a further step for amends if you want the relationship. But if you want your true character to show, do that dumb shit. Start throwing a temper tantrum. Dude, these are 3-year-olds. These are 3-year-olds.
It's funny.
If someone honks at me and I wave at them, I say sorry. I don't flip you off.
Yep.
I'm fucking 49 now.
So
Like I can see my emotion. Even if I want to flip you off, I don't.
So what happened was he went on that podcast, which has like listeners. He went
Yeah.
on the podcast,
Which I'm really surprised too. Is it really that good of a podcast?
yeah, Bert's a great guy, and Bert has a very big audience, and Bert didn't mean to start that. So that was said, and I was like, oh my God. And he had done it on Dr. Mutually friends with Dr. Drew. And he'd done it twice. Like, all right. So I started texting with him going, do you know what you just went on this podcast and accused me of being a thief? And so I kind of went back at him about all the things I knew about him, like going, I could say this, I could say this, I could say that. And I talked to a couple comedians that I respect, and I said, you know, what should I do? And one of them's like, you need to go to war. The public will love this, blah, 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 defend yourself. And one person was like, you need to sue him for slander. That's slander, you know, and he's going to hurt your business. He's, you know,
It's obvious he's lying. It's so obvious he's lying.
So it's funny. A buddy of mine who I work with, who's Tommy Chong's son, and I've worked with him. He's produced Tommy's shows and stuff. He heard it and called me and was like, Jesus Christ, blah, blah, blah. So I was really upset that day. Like, I remember storming around on my deck all day long, just like, I can't believe this just happened. And I was about to like go to war with him, and I was like, this is going to get ugly. It's going to get into like the news. It's going to, you know, like the comedy news, and that's what at the time. And Tommy Chong. And,
that's cool.
And I've worked with Tommy on a number of shows, and he's a great person. And Tommy went, hey man, bigger man. So you got to just wish him well and let him move on with his life. And, you know, and you just got to just be the bigger man. And
I agree.
I sat there and thought about it. And I thought about my mom and dad and everything they instilled in me. And I was like, granted, this could maybe help being something people would pay attention, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of likes this shit. but I'm like, it's not who I am. This is not me. Uh, and I'm gonna be the bigger man, and I'm just gonna let it go. He and I both, and I know the truth down deep. You know, just gonna let this go, and it sucks on the internet. And every once in a while, I'll put something on the internet, be like, "You fucking thief! Why don't you pay Jim Jeffries?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, it never." And we had
That's fucking hilarious.
countless texts back and forth. You know, like we put it this way, we made. I basically said to him, "This needs to stop because you know that I know, like, the truth." And
It's so obvious the guy has no idea what he's talking about. Like, I've only spoken to you a couple times. I've never spoken to him, and I just came across that video and watched it. And the dude's just a complete D-bag. I mean, a complete D-bag. Everything out of his mouth is and I know Bert's your friend, but Bert just went along with it too. Like Bert should have fucking kicked him in his teeth, like stopped him. Like if I was saying something stupid, like when I said something earlier about talent or something, I can't remember. You're like, well, I'll push back there, and we talked, and like Bert should have pushed back a little bit. I mean, that guy's just saying stupid shit, unless that's his whole shtick with this show, like just to give people enough rope to hang themselves. But man, I was I felt dirtier for watching that video with him and Bert. Like I was like, damn, why did I watch
I
that?
was really hurt by that. Like, I just, it's like someone calling you a rapist, you know, when you didn't ever do anything like that.
God forbid.
And
God forbid. I don't want to be called a rapist, a racist, or a pedophile.
yeah, but thief is
And that, by the way, that's the liberal play card, by the way, right there. If you want to know how liberals operate, that's exactly how they operate. They just threaten, and I used to be one, so I know.
I heard a guy on Joe Rogan say something that makes so much sense, though. I forget who this guy was. He's a writer, British guy, and I've used it now, and it works really well.
Just call someone a racist anytime they offend you and they freak out. You racist.
When someone accuses you of something you are not,
Yes.
accuse them of something they are not.
Right.
So if somebody goes, "You're a racist,"
That's not taking Tommy Chong's advice.
You go, "You're a pedophile."
Yes.
And
Yes.
they're like, "No, I'm not a pedophile." And you go, "Well, I'm not a racist." And they go, "No, you're a racist. This is and go, "Your behavior is you act like a pedophile." If you start hammering them the way they are hammering you and bullying you using whatever social media means,
Yes. Yes.
you're using yours back to them. All of a sudden they go, "Wow, this is rude. And I need to stop bullying people." Not right to do when they're clearly not a racist, because I knew it would hurt them. And I knew that I had power in doing it. Wow, they have power too. A comedian,
Hey, someone did that to me.
excuse me, let me finish what this comedian.
Please. Yes.
Two comedians, Kyle Dunnigan and Kyle Dunnigan's Instagram. He and Kurt Metzger crucified for on the Amy Schumer show, and he said that lynch mobs should not be able to call out comics and get them fired for go through due process, because vilify someone who is innocent. I think rape and sexual assault and all these things are wrong. You should go through due process. And then he became a rape apologist and all this stuff, and they went after him. But anyway, Kurt, he Schumer show and blah blah blah. Kurt does a show with Kyle on on Kyle's Instagram called Pussies, and it's a show about women. And it's these two beta males who talk like they review movies, and they'll talk about like The Empire Strikes Back and how, oh look, here come as they are, the Ku Klux Klan, and he's like,
Yeah. I love it.
like, and they're getting his hand cut off, which is also, excuse me, but it's so fucking funny. It is so funny. But Kurt said,
Do you have COVID? Do you have COVID?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Kurt said, he heard this from another comic. The only way you stop this shit is by throwing it back in their face. And the more you make fun of it, the more they realize how stupid they sound.
Well, they all cannibalize each other. That's the one good thing about
Yeah, it's hilarious.
that. They'll eat each other. They have no loyalty to each other. They'll just eat each other. One
No,
minute,
it's not. It's not. Um, what do they call that? Signaling. What's the word?
virtue signaling.
It's not really virtue signaling or being virtuous. It's opportunism.
Right.
What I've seen in my world, which is comedy, where cancel culture has been like incredible. I mean, it's raging. It's rampant. I mean, there are people that do it as a sport in my business where they will just seek out people and try to have them canceled because they feel like they deserve it. It's all opportunism. It's
All.
how can this give me a platform and how can I bring someone else down so that I can move up the ladder instead of like something wrong.
Someone's complaining that your volume's too low. Hey, you know what I did? I turned my volume down. What do you think about that, guys? That's the
about-
common. Oh, oh, yeah. That was better. How'd you do that?
Volume up.
Wow. Okay. Shit. What kind of board do you have there?
I'm using the
Oh,
Zoom.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah. The
And then,
Zoom.
and then that's just the camera on your computer.
Yeah, but it's Amazon. I'm doing a whole new setup.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna take a picture of it and put it on your Instagram?
I'm not
Oh.
like I always want the best, but I hate it. Like I'd rather walk in a room and sit down and start talking. But I micromanage and I'm like, I got to get this shit because it's got, but I then look like I don't like possessions, like technical shit. I don't like camera and
I
like
love
to
all
perform.
that stuff. I'm such a geek.
I like having good stuff. Like I like it to work well and look professional and when it doesn't, which I have had, and so I'm like spending a lot of money and making just because I think the kind of how you do anything is how you do everything, and if your podcast looks like shit, it probably is shit.
Oh, uh-oh. Well, I'm working on improving. I started with I set the bar really low so that I can improve every day.
Well, it's a learning. I mean, there's a learning curve to it. There is so much to learn. Is this kind of figure it all out on your own?
Yes. And no one wants to share.
No.
I have to go to the skate park.
So do I.
Are you really?
Yeah.
With your
Exactly.
kids?
Yeah, I take the kids. I go probably like 3 days a week now.
Oh, wow. That's a trip. We're both going to the skate park.
Yeah. Yeah, the little one, the 2-year-old's loving it.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go and
How good
thank
are
you
your
for
kids
coming on.
getting?
Oh boy. You want to know something crazy? So I'll just tell a story real quick. So one of my kids has been skateboarding every day now for over a year. Hasn't missed a day. And I bought a $10,000 skate ramp and put it in the front yard, and he just
saw
skates
that.
his ass off on it. And so he has had a skateboard instructor one day a week for like the last 6 months, and the guy's awesome. I love him. But the other day I went over the hill, which is basically where into Silicon Valley. It's like north of my house by 20 miles. There's more money than God there. I know people think they live in these really rich areas.
Yeah.
But this place is nuts. So basically I go to this skate park in Sunnyvale, California. And
I was supposed to be performing in Sunnyvale in 3 weeks at Rooster T. Feathers, but what is in my throat?
Cock and balls.
Um,
So basically there was a skate pro there, a professional skater, and it took me like 4 months, and I got a class with him for my kid. And in that fucking 1 hour, my kid just like, it was nuts. And he basically said, yeah. And I go, hey, but I love my other skate coach. He goes, yeah, there's just a difference. I'm a fucking professional skater. And like, he just tweaked. He just worked with my kid for like probably an hour. It was I think it was $80 or $100. And the guy's name is Josh. He's got a big YouTube channel. I forget his name. But anyway, it was nuts. You get what you pay for. And so like my kid just and so like right now we're going to go back to his old skateboarding coach today, who charges half as much, charges $50 an hour, and I'm curious if he's going to see the difference in the 1 hour my kid did with this pro skater. And it's not a dig. There's just this other guy's a professional musician who teaches skateboarding lessons on the side, and this other guy's a pro skater. They're
How
just
old's your
different.
son?
6.
And what kind of stuff right now?
He doesn't really do any tricks. He's really proficient at skating, right?
Going
So
up and down the ramp, like
up and down the ramp, drop in. He just started doing tail stalls. He does 50-50s.
oh, cool.
He just did his first like vertical drop in. He can do a lot of big drop ins, but this one, you know, the vertical ones where the top, like it's like a 10 or 12 foot drop in, and there's like 2 feet of just vert at the top.
Oh, so dropping off the vert, it wasn't a roll on.
Yeah, he finally dropped into one that was a vert.
Wow. Let me ask you,
he-
were you a
yeah.
skater at all?
No. I can't skateboard at all.
So
At zero.
Where did this come from? Them to skate?
So I'm just the classic, like I want comedians and fighters on my show because like I wished I was funny and I wish I could fight. My kids play tennis and they're really good at tennis, and not because I wanted to play tennis, because it was one of the only activities in the area where they didn't require masks. My kids will never wear a mask. Never, ever, ever, ever. And skateboarding, skateboarding, I wanted them to skate, and we had a skateboard in the entryway, and he would never skate. And then at 5.5, he goes, never been on a skateboard before. He goes, I'm going to skate every day for a year.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, I'll buy you ice cream every 100 days consecutive days you skate. And on the 365th day, I'll let you throw an ice cream party, which is just crazy because I don't do that shit for my kids.
Yeah.
And he did it, and he made it a year. The first 100 days were so slow, dude.
Oh, I can.
Eddie, they were so slow, Eddie. And now he's just a shredder. Like he's got,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Such
And
a
same with
good skill to
jujitsu.
have.
Like they do jujitsu because I'd be terrified to roll around on a mat with a guy who's trying to choke me out. And yet, so my kids have to do it. They have to face my fears.
I know you got to go, but let me ask you this: Josh Bridges, is he going to win his boxing match?
He's gonna fuck Jacob Hepner up.
I think so too. I was watching both of them,
Uh-huh.
and I'm having Tony Jeffries on my show. I think, and
Tony Jeffries. Who's Tony Jeffries?
boxing burn. He is a silver medalist in boxing in the Olympics.
I'm
Really
going to try to schedule him for my podcast on Tuesday.
British guy, and I'm going to have him on, and I want to talk to him about them. Observed, and just my humble opinion that better. Josh looks better at, so I would bet my money on Josh.
Jacob's bigger and maybe more athletic.
Hunter McIntyre is very butthurt, and I don't want to start. Wanted to fight so badly in that about it, and he said that some of the guys fighting because he's such a trouble,
and he's
That's
probably
why
such a good athlete.
Yeah.
Oh, he should do it. Have you ever interviewed him? I should interview him.
I have Hunter on, like he's on almost every week on my show, and he lives near me, and we get into too much trouble together.
Will you
Hunter's
tell him
one
I'm
of the
cool or
funniest-
something? Will you say something nice about me to him?
Sure, he'll do your podcast.
him?
Like, if I'll call him right after this, he'll say he'll do it.
You know who you should have on is Devin Lorette.
I want.
Oh yeah, I want Glassman too. Soon, I think very soon, January 1, the floodgates are gonna open.
Is Devin the guy that bear crawled across?
Devin's the guy fighting Thor.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, strongman.
Yes, you should DM him. He's a professional arm wrestler. He was JTF2. He's basically Canada's most elite fighting. He was on Canada's most elite fighting force, basically Canada's SEAL Team 6, and he's a legend in that community also. And he's also a professional arm wrestler, and he's a great guy with an amazing sense of humor. You would love him.
Is he fighting Eddie Hall?
He's fighting Thor, the mountain.
Oh.
He's replacing Eddie Hall.
Oh, Eddie Hall's not fighting?
No, you're like me. Yeah, I like it how you don't even know about any of that stuff up there. I didn't even know who Eddie Hall was. People are like, I cannot believe you don't know who Eddie Hall is.
I knew Eddie
I'm
Hall
like,
because
dude,
he did Grace or Isabel or some like broke the record so easily without which I love CrossFit, but I love to see like something like
yes,
that happen.
me too.
I
Me
love
too. I love that too.
where CrossFitters think they're amazing at something, and that's why I loved Hunter, and I love that Glassman invited Castro, who I like now, did not like it, and
I didn't like it that Greg did that either.
I thought it was hysterical, and I pushed it so hard because I still contend that Hunter is one of the fittest people in the world, and I can argue that till the cows come home. But he is
He is definitely.
he's a freak of nature, and I don't
Yes.
want to get into it because you got to go to. But like my argument is that like Glassman's definition of fitness is Glassman's definition of fitness, but that is Glassman's definition of fitness. When there is so much skill to it. Like when I always like CrossFit events where they give them weird before, or like the wheelbarrow and the sandbags, thing that they could have trained for but not trained to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
the unknowing stuff. I love
Me too.
Hunter. If you had a whole bunch of those events, I think Hunter could be maybe not win, but up there in the top. The fact that he can't handstand walk is might not have that skill, but if you throw
Right.
never done,
Right.
he'll win.
How much does he weigh?
He's up. He's going to try to break the world record in the Clydesdale Marathon. So he's got to break 2:30 in the marathon. He just did the other day, did a 500-pound deadlift in a 5 minute. Like people have been doing that, and he just did it like that.
Wow.
Didn't even think about it. He was like, "Yeah, I'll do it."
The impressive one though is I think Adam Klink did the back squat.
The back squat's impressive, and I said to Hunter, "Why don't you do that?" He goes, "Because I can't squat 500." And I was like, "Well, you got something to work at."
Yeah, that shit's crazy. Hey, if he could make can he drop down to 180? Can that dude weigh 180, 175?
He probably was that CrossFit.
My wife's hanging on the door. He should cut down to 175 and fight Josh. If Josh wins this fight, I'm sure he'll be on the next card in March.
I don't think Josh.
He
He said Josh doesn't want to fight him, or was.
Oh shit!
I don't think Josh.
That cannot be true.
I don't think.
Do not say that about my friend Josh.
No, I love Josh. I don't think Josh likes him because he tried to contact Josh through. He broke the Murph world record.
Hunter did?
Yeah. And he made a big deal about it. And Josh was like, "Hey, this is not about that. This is about memorializing, a man and serviceman," which I understand. And I even said to Hunter, I said, "If you're going to do this, you do this for charity and you do it." And he's like, I will. I was like, we all, the whole idea of a community of people do this to remember the guys that, risk their lives for us and have died in service for us. And you're out there, just trying to bust the record. And I think Josh had the record before Hunter, but this year beat Hunter by 2 seconds or something. But, Hunter, he puts his mind to something, he can do it. So I don't know. Ask Josh if he'll fight him. I mean, it's not fair. Hunter he's 6'2". The reach, I wouldn't fight him if I was Josh. It's not a fair fight. Reach.
I can't wait to have Hunter on my show. End stream.
Difference.
End stream.
Yeah, I talk too much.
Dude.